You've seen them parked outside diners, trailering into rallies, or buried deep in dealership corners. The bikes nobody wants to admit they bought. This is the no-holds-barred list of motorcycles only the dumbest riders still own. You'll want to see what made number 1. Number 14. Honda Shadow Phantom. It once stood as a smart choice for riders looking to enter the cruiser market without emptying their wallets. It featured minimalist styling, a low stance, and an approachable price that made it feel like a bargain. But in 2025, it no longer holds its place. Beneath the matte black aesthetic is a 745 cubic centimeter V-twin engine producing just 44 horsepower and 47 pound-feet of torque. Weighing in at 475 pounds wet with a low seat height of 25.8 inches, the bike remains friendly to shorter or less experienced riders. But the braking system is a dated mix of a front disc and rear drum, and the suspension setup, non-adjustable and unsophisticated, reminds you this bike was built for cost savings, not innovation. You won't find anti-lock braking, traction control, or modern displays here. The analog dash and lack of ride modes make the experience feel more like a time capsule than a ride. At a starting price of $8,399, the Shadow Phantom is no longer the value it once was. Rival bikes from Honda itself and competitors like Yamaha and Kawasaki now offer more technology, more torque, and better fuel efficiency. Even resale has taken a nosedive as younger riders ignore it and older riders move on. It was once a safe bet. Today, it's a forgotten cruiser collecting dust in the back corner of the dealership. The next motorcycle on this list was supposed to carry the legacy of an American icon into the future. Instead, it divided riders and crashed expectations with one of the most confused product launches in the brand's history. Number 13. Harley-Davidson Sportster S. When it launched, the Sportster S was positioned as a bold leap forward. Harley had modernized everything: aggressive styling, liquid cooling, ride modes, digital displays, and a brand new Revolution Max engine. It was an attempt to blend old school power with new school tech. On paper, it looked brilliant. The engine produces 121 horsepower and 94 pound-feet of torque from a 1,252 cubic centimeters. The bike weighs 502 pounds wet and sits at a manageable seat height of 28.9 inches. Suspension is fully adjustable front and rear, and the braking system features cornering-enhanced anti-lock braking designed to inspire confidence. You also get selectable ride modes and a sleek digital dash that was a first for this platform. But while the features impressed spec sheet readers, the experience left real-world riders divided. The riding position is aggressive, the ride harsh, and the ergonomics best suited for short, fast rides, not long-term comfort. For seasoned cruiser owners, it feels disconnected from Harley's heritage. For new riders, it feels overpriced and overly complicated. That disconnect killed the momentum it should have had. Instead of reviving the Sportster line, this model isolated the very riders it was meant to impress. With a starting price of $15,499, the value proposition became a tough sell in a market filled with better balanced alternatives. While it may have succeeded in some engineering aspects, the spirit was off, and Harley loyalists know that spirit matters. The next machine on this list removed the sound, the soul, and the legacy, only to charge the price of a touring bike for the privilege. If any of these bikes sound painfully familiar, hit that like button, and let's stir the pot. Drop a comment with the dumbest motorcycle you've ever owned. Number 12. Harley-Davidson Livewire. Harley poured millions into developing a fully electric bike that would appeal to a younger, environmentally conscious generation. But the end result missed nearly every target. The Livewire makes 105 horsepower and 86 pound-feet of torque, delivered through a fully electric drivetrain with no gears and no engine vibration. Weighing 549 pounds wet with a seat height of 30 inches, it looks like a high-end naked bike. Braking is handled by a premium Brembo setup with anti-lock technology, and suspension duties are managed by fully adjustable Showa components front and rear. The ride is smooth, responsive, and deadly quiet. That silence is exactly where the problem starts. For a brand built on visceral experience, the Livewire offers none of the things riders associate with Harley. There is no rumble, no shifting, no exhaust note, only quiet acceleration and a digital dash. Range is limited to 146 miles in city riding and far less at highway speeds. Charging infrastructure remains inconsistent, with full charges taking anywhere from 45 minutes at a fast charger to overnight on a wall outlet. At a starting price of $29,799, it costs more than some full-dress touring models. And for that price, riders expected more than novelty. They wanted history, emotion, and grit. Instead, they got an electric experiment that rode like a silent commuter bike. Where Harley tried to modernize too much, the next bike on this list tried to overwhelm the streets with brute force. And buyers quickly realized the only thing more powerful than the engine was the regret that followed. If you're riding smarter, not pricier, don't miss our hand-picked gear list in the description. It's built for real riders. Number 11. Suzuki Boulevard M109R. When it first hit the scene, the Boulevard M109R looked like a muscle cruiser ready to shake up the market. With aggressive styling, massive power, and a drag-inspired profile, it promised a bold riding experience. The numbers were certainly there. It delivers 128 horsepower and 118 pound-feet of torque from a 1,783 cubic centimeter V-twin engine. All that torque pushes a wet weight of 764 pounds. The seat height sits at 27.8 inches, keeping the center of gravity low, while the rear tire looks like it belongs on a car. Front and rear suspension are standard telescopic fork and preload adjustable monoshock, with twin disc brakes up front and a single disc in the rear. But behind all the muscle is a machine that aged quickly and now sits ignored on showroom floors. The Boulevard M109R struggles in tight turns, offers a harsh ride, and lacks any modern rider aids. There is no traction control, no ride modes, and no cornering assistance. Its fuel economy is poor, and the analog dash feels outdated even by cruiser standards. At a starting price of $14,999, it has become a hard sell in a market that now demands more comfort, tech, and efficiency. Dealers are finding it nearly impossible to move unsold inventory. Riders, drawn in by the size, often walk away after a test ride. What once felt like the future of muscle cruising now feels like yesterday's heavyweight. But if you think big and dumb is bad, the next bike took dumb and put a Porsche badge on it. Number 10. Harley-Davidson V-Rod. This bike was Harley's boldest departure from tradition. Designed in collaboration with Porsche, it introduced a liquid-cooled engine, high-revving performance, and sleek, modern styling. On paper, it was a revolution. In reality, it alienated the exact riders who once built the brand's legacy. Under the tank is an 1,130 cubic centimeter Revolution 5 twin, making between 115 and 125 horsepower, with 84 pound-feet of torque. It weighs 670 pounds wet and carries a seat height of 26 inches. Dual disc brakes up front and a single disc in the rear handle stopping duties, while the suspension features a standard front fork and twin rear shocks, neither offering much in the way of comfort. Despite the spec sheet, the V-Rod never delivered what riders expected from either a Harley or a performance cruiser. It was too fast and aggressive for traditional Harley riders, but too heavy and sluggish for sport bike fans. The riding position pushed the rider back with stretched arms and forward controls that felt disconnected from the frame. Many longtime Harley owners scoffed at its radiator and unfamiliar engine tone. For newcomers, the cost of ownership and lack of customization turned them away. The price started at $16,999. Reasonable for what it offered, but without a community to support it, it felt like a lonely ride. Even now, resale values remain stagnant, and interest in used models is limited. It wasn't just a failed design, it was a failed identity experiment. Want a Harley mistake that cost less but hurt more? Meet the bike even Harley tried to destroy. Number 9. Buell Blast. It was built to be the gateway to the Harley-Davidson brand, a stripped-down single-cylinder motorcycle that would train new riders and ease them into American V-twin culture. What it became instead was one of the most ridiculed entry-level machines ever produced. It features a 492 cubic centimeter air-cooled engine that produced just 34 horsepower and 30 pound-feet of torque. It weighs 360 pounds wet, making it relatively light for a training bike. The seat height is 27.5 inches, and the braking system includes a single front disc and rear drum. Suspension is basic, with a conventional front fork and twin rear shocks. On the surface, it should have worked, but the ride quality was abysmal. At idle and under load, the bike vibrated so violently that riders routinely reported numb hands and cracked plastic bodywork. The 5-speed transmission was clunky, and the clutch engagement was unforgiving for new riders. Turning was awkward, the suspension bottomed out easily, and the ergonomics suited no one. Fuel economy hovered around 65 miles per gallon, but That was its only saving grace. With no anti-lock braking system, no technology, and little resale interest, the Blast became more of a cautionary tale than a learning tool. The final insult came from Eric Buell himself, who publicly destroyed a Blast in a promotional video after Harley shut down his company. It was a symbolic gesture, but one that told the truth. Even its creator no longer believed in the machine. From starter bikes to starter packs for divorcees, the next entry on this list is a three-wheeled cruiser that robbed riders of their pride one corner at a time. Number 8. Can-Am Spyder. This bike was designed for riders who still wanted the open-air feeling of motorcycle travel, but without the risk of leaning or balancing on two wheels. Unfortunately, what they got was a machine that looks like a snowmobile and handles like a lawn tractor. Powered by a 998 cubic centimeter Rotax V twin engine, it delivers roughly 100 horsepower and 75 pound-feet of torque. The Spyder tips the scale at 948 pounds wet. Seat height is 29 inches, and its front-wheel configuration uses dual discs with anti-lock braking. The rear is a single disc, and the suspension includes double A-arms with adjustable preload in front and a swing arm rear setup. From a technology standpoint, it features traction control, stability control, and semi-automatic shifting. But for all its gadgets, the ride is still a chore. The problem lies in the design itself. Because it doesn't lean, the Spyder plows through corners with all the grace of a forklift. High-speed turns feel unstable. Low-speed maneuvers feel clumsy. And despite the added safety features, most experienced riders feel disconnected and out of control. It's not a motorcycle. It's a heavy, overcomplicated platform for people who want the image without the challenge. With a starting price of $17,000, it costs more than many capable two-wheelers, and for that price, it delivers less fun, less feedback, and far less respect on the road. It tells the world, I used to ride, without actually proving it. At least that was stable. The next bike on this list has no idea what it is. Even the factory gave up trying to explain it. Number 7. Honda DN01. Some motorcycles get their identity wrong. The DN01 didn't have one to begin with. This machine tried to be a cruiser, a scooter, and a sport bike all at once. What came out was a design experiment that confused everyone and convinced almost no one to buy. Beneath the dramatic bodywork is a 682 cubic centimeter V twin engine making 60 horsepower and 47 pound-feet of torque. It weighs 595 pounds wet with a seat height of 27.2 inches. The braking system includes dual front discs and a single rear disc with a linked setup, while the suspension features a telescopic front fork and single rear shock. The standout feature, if it can be called that, was the human-friendly transmission, a hydromechanical, continuously variable transmission that removed all rider engagement. What you got was scooter-style operation, cruiser-style seating, and sport bike-level confusion. The feet-forward layout says touring. The low bars say aggression, and the handling says none of the above. It was sluggish in corners, soft under pressure, and awkward to maneuver in traffic. The fairings looked futuristic, but offered no real wind protection. And once you got past the styling, you were left with a ride that felt dull and indecisive. Even for riders looking for simplicity, the DN01 overpromised and underdelivered. At a starting price of $15,000, it offered neither comfort nor performance, just an odd, quiet stumble through design language that nobody spoke. Honda only sold it for a short time, and it's easy to see why. From confused hybrids to bloated cruisers, Kawasaki's next entry proves that sometimes more is definitely not better. Number 6. Kawasaki ZN 1300 Voyager. When Kawasaki built the ZN 1300 Voyager, they were aiming to dominate the long-distance touring class. Instead, they created a motorcycle that handles like a fully loaded refrigerator strapped to a dolly. At its heart is a 1,286 cubic centimeter inline-six engine that produces 120 horsepower and 93 pound-feet of torque. That power comes with a cost, specifically a wet weight of 895 pounds. The seat height stands at 30 inches. Braking is handled by triple disc brakes, and the suspension includes a telescopic front fork and dual rear shock. On a straight highway, the Voyager is stable and smooth. In parking lots or tight corners, it's a liability. Riders describe turning it as similar to captaining a small yacht. The weight overwhelms the suspension. The engine heat soaks your legs, and routine maintenance becomes a major event thanks to complex vacuum lines, tricky carburetors, and unexpected electrical issues. In a touring segment dominated by refinement, the Voyager delivered drama. There's no modern technology here, no traction control, no rider modes, and no real fuel economy to speak of. You're looking at mid-20s miles per gallon, and that's assuming everything is running properly. At a starting price of $8,500 when it launched, it was competitive. Today, it's just heavy. The Voyager is a machine that tried to do everything bigger and ended up feeling bloated and difficult. Some owners still swear by it. Most swore at it. At least it was meant for the highway. The next motorcycle barely makes it past the driveway. Number 5. Suzuki GSX 250R. Designed to mimic the look of Suzuki's larger sport bikes, this model often fools new riders into thinking they're getting a scaled-down track weapon. What they actually get is a 248 cubic centimeter parallel twin engine that produces 25 horsepower and 17 pound-feet of torque. The wet weight is 393 pounds with a seat height of 31.1 inches. Suspension consists of a non-adjustable telescopic front fork and a preload adjustable single rear shock. Braking comes from a single disc up front and rear, supported by a basic anti-lock braking system. For new riders, it feels light and manageable, but once they try to push it, the shortcomings become obvious. Acceleration is sluggish. Highway passing power is non-existent, and the engine struggles to maintain speed on even mild inclines. In city riding, it sounds more like a sewing machine than a sport bike. Fuel economy is excellent at over 70 miles per gallon, but that becomes irrelevant when the bike feels uninspiring in nearly every other category. The real issue lies in its identity. Riders think they're getting a budget GSX-R. Instead, they get a moped in disguise. At a starting price of $4,999, the performance-to-dollar ratio simply doesn't make sense. It may serve as a stepping stone for brand new riders, but it offers nothing beyond the first few months of ownership. The next entry on this list trades sporty looks for sensible styling, but forgets to include anything worth riding for. Number 4. Honda CTX 700. This is what happens when a motorcycle is designed by committee with the goal of offending no one and exciting no one either. This machine blends pieces of cruiser, commuter, and touring categories into something that doesn't fully belong in any of them. It features a 671 cubic centimeter parallel twin engine that makes 48 horsepower and 45 pound-feet of torque. The wet weight comes in at 475 pounds with a seat height of 28.3 inches. The brakes include a front disc and rear disc with standard anti-lock braking system, and the suspension is made up of a basic telescopic fork and rear single shock with preload adjustment. But what truly defines the CTX is its automatic transmission. Riders twist the throttle and go. No shifting, no clutch, no connection. The feet-forward seating position suggests cruiser. The frame-mounted fairing suggests tourer. The actual experience suggests disappointment. Acceleration is dull and handling feels vague and lazy. There is very little wind protection, virtually no storage unless aftermarket options are added, and comfort begins to fade after an hour in the saddle. For a machine that aims to appeal to new or returning riders, it ends up offering neither the personality of a cruiser nor the versatility of a tourer. With a starting price of $8,399, many riders find themselves questioning what they are actually paying for. The answer, unfortunately, is a quiet, featureless ride with no lasting appeal. Now let's crank the power and the poor decisions with a motorcycle that was born for the racetrack but mistakenly sold for Main Street. Number 3. Kawasaki Ninja H 2R. With an engine built for the racetrack and a power curve that borders on insanity, it is less a motorcycle and more a high-velocity experiment in human survival. Underneath the carbon fiber and aerodynamic winglets lies a 998 cubic centimeter supercharged inline-four engine producing 310 horsepower and 115 pound-feet of torque. Weighing just 476 pounds dry, the H2R boasts a seat height of 32.7 inches. It uses a race-spec suspension suspension setup with fully adjustable front forks and rear shock paired with high-end Brembo disc brakes all around. There are no turn signals, no mirrors, no emissions controls. This is not a street-legal machine. It was never designed to be. Despite that, owners continue to buy it with the illusion that sheer power somehow equals prestige. The reality is that most buyers never push the throttle past 50%. The few that do often find themselves in over their heads fast. The ride is so intense even professional racers approach it with caution. It demands track-level skill, full protective gear, and a closed course. Yet here it is, being sold to lawyers, dentists, and tech millionaires with no experience and too much confidence. The price? $55,000 before fees. What you get is a bike you can't legally ride on the street, can't insure easily, and can't fix without specialized service. It's the ultimate example of overkill, an engineering marvel wasted in the hands of people who confuse garage trophies for skill. If you're still here, you're not just watching, you're thinking. Subscribe now if you want unfiltered, brutally honest takes the manufacturers wish we'd shut up about. The next bike on this list might hit closer to home than you think. Number 2, BMW R18. When the R18 debuted, it was supposed to be BMW's answer to Harley-Davidson, a bold, chrome-soaked cruiser powered by the largest boxer engine the company had ever produced. What it became was a sales disaster. The engine makes 91 horsepower and 116 pound-feet of torque from 1,802 cubic centimeters. Weighing in at 891 pounds wet, the R18 has a seat height of 27.2 inches. Suspension includes telescopic forks and rear cantilever shock, while braking is handled by triple disc brakes with full anti-lock functionality. On paper, it seemed ready to challenge Milwaukee. In execution, it missed the mark entirely. The ergonomics are awkward. The boxer engine cylinders stick out far enough to burn your shins at stops. Handling is slow and clumsy in urban environments, and parking it requires a plan. There's little in the way of storage or tech beyond basic traction control and anti-lock braking. And while it looks like a cruiser, it does not ride like one. The power delivery is abrupt, and the ride quality falls short of BMW's touring standards. Most BMW loyalists had no interest in a heritage cruiser. And the Harley crowd? They never looked twice. With a starting price of $17,495, the R18 delivered weight without comfort, torque without character, and retro styling without authenticity. It's a bike that nobody asked for, and fewer riders wanted to keep. But if you think that's bad, the number one spot goes to a motorcycle with one job, and it failed at all of them. Number 1, Honda Goldwing F6C Valkyrie. For decades, the Goldwing name stood for one thing: comfort-focused long-distance touring. It was the bike that could cross a continent without breaking a sweat. Then came the F6C Valkyrie in 2014, and with it, a baffling redesign that stripped away everything that made the Goldwing legendary. Honda removed the windshield, the saddlebags, and the weather protection, leaving behind a motorcycle that looked aggressive but lost its sense of purpose. The specs still sound impressive. The engine is an 1,832 cubic centimeter flat six, producing 104 horsepower and 123 pound-feet of torque. Wet weight comes in at 750 pounds with a seat height of 28.1 inches. Braking duties are handled by dual front and single rear disc brakes with anti-lock braking, and suspension includes a dual front fork and a rear pro-arm single shock. But all that engineering couldn't mask the identity crisis. The F6C tried to be a cruiser but felt too big. It tried to be a stripped-down tourer but lacked storage and wind protection. It handled better than the full Goldwing but still felt massive in city riding. For solo riders, it was too much bike. For two-up riding, it lacked comfort. And for long-distance travel, it had none of the essentials. At a starting price of $17,999, most riders chose to either go all in on the full touring version or downsize to something more practical. The F6C ended up stuck in the middle, pleasing no one. If this list had you shaking your head or realizing you've made some questionable choices, go ahead and drop your hot take in the comments, and hit subscribe so you don't miss what we expose next. And if you're done cringing at the worst bikes out there, let's flip the script. Our next video dives into some seriously exciting machines that might redefine 2026. From wild concept leaks to game-changing production models, it's the kind of insider preview you won't get from the mainstream. You won't want to miss it.